Hi, my name's Jenny, and today I will be taking you through a presentation on developing workplace resilience. So first of all, about me, a little cheesy picture of me there for you. Just thought I'd give you a background about me so you know who is giving this presentation. So my name's Jenny, and I did study psychology at university and didn't quite know what I wanted to do with it. So went traveling, moved to London and got a job as an executive assistant in the city. And I just realized that working in an office wasn't for me. I find it really difficult being still, sat down, love the gym. So decided to retrain as a personal trainer and then made that my career. But being someone that has suffered from imposter syndrome ever since I started work really. For those of you who don't know what imposter syndrome is, as the name suggests, it's like that feeling of being imposter, like you don't really know what you're talking about. It's very been related to being like a fraud. So I didn't feel like I was a good enough personal trainer. I thought I'd be found out that I didn't know what I was talking about. And in some ways, this has been really good because it has made me always want to do better and keep training and do more qualifications. But that is not a way to get over imposter syndrome. It is much deeper rooted than that, but it had some benefits. So what I did is, first of all, I didn't feel like my knowledge of anatomy was good enough. And lots of my clients were office workers, and office work tends to be synonymous with back pain, neck pain, the normal sort of niggles. So I did my Pilates qualification, and then I did my yoga course. I did that in India more because I loved yoga and I got an opportunity to kind of go over there and be fully immersed in like everything about yoga. Then I did a qualification in performance coaching because I realized that my clients weren't necessarily doing the things that I told them. And I realized that there's more to it than just being told. And it's, finding those other ways to try and make those changes. Then I did my NLP qualification, which is neuro-linguistic programming. And that's about like retraining the brain or, reprogramming the brain, as the name suggests. And it's all about beliefs and things like that. And then finally, I started a master's in sports psychology, basically on a bit of a whim, but it was something I was interested in like years before. We're going into the pandemic, into the winter of the first year of the pandemic, and I thought, why not? And I'm so glad I did, because this is what's got me into this resilience and everything else. It's been really great to stretch myself, and so very glad with that decision. So now I'll get on with the presentation. So first of all, stress. So stress, I think most people would agree, it was massively increased in the last 2 years. It has been a very stressful time. I think a lot of the uncertainty has made that more of the case. But it has had a real impact upon people within the workplace. So 1 in 7 employees experience a mental health problem. It's quite a high amount, and this is actually figures pre-pandemic. So nearly 15% of those, that stress disrupted their ability to work. So it's a really important issue for employers and for employees who don't want to be suffering from stress. And so more and more people are getting diagnosed with chronic stress, so that long-term stress that's really detrimental. And from an employer's point of view, it costs 45 billion each year, which is a huge amount to be lost. And also sickness absence days is 12.7% attributed to mental health conditions. And stress on its own, 9 million sick days taken each year, which is like a huge number. So the reason this ties into resilience. So first of all, just want you to take a moment to think about what do you think resilience is? It's a bit of a buzzword in the media or just generally. It's quite fashionable at the moment, but what do you think resilience is? Give you a moment to think about that. And now I'll just take you on to some scientific or psychological definitions of resilience. So according to the American Psychological Association, it's the process of adapting well in the face of adversity, trauma, tragedy, threats, or even significant sources of stress. So the original literature research was really looking at it as like a major resilience against major life events, so major trauma like wars and things like that. And then Luther et al. Described it as a dynamic process encompassing positive adaptation within the context of significant adversity. So again, that idea of like something really significant. But actually later research has discovered that resilience relates to everyday stressors that we sort of come into contact with on a daily basis, weekly basis. So it's important so it's not just related to like massive trauma. And Richardson came up with the definition that resilience is a dynamic process that operates over time rather than a static unidimensional trait. So when you think of traits, you think of something quite fixed, but actually resilience is something that can be developed. Some people are naturally more resilient than others, but it is something that you can work at, a bit like a muscle, training it. So it just takes a bit of work, but you can get more resilient with time. And then finally, Fletcher and Sarkar, psychological resilience is the role of mental processes and behaviour in promoting personal assets and protecting an individual from potential negative effects of stressors. So I'm going to unpack that a bit in a moment, so I won't go into it now. But here we go. First of all, benefits of resilience. So first of all, resilience makes people more motivated, and motivation is actually an aspect of resilience. It also improves employees' overall health, which is really important, especially these days when people like the sickness, absence is getting more and more. Less absenteeism and presenteeism. So presenteeism, if you don't already know, it's the idea of being present but not really there. So you're there in body but maybe not really engaging in your work. Your productivity levels will be much lower, probably just going through the motions, doing the bare minimum. So then again, you're not being efficient, you're not being as productive as you could be. So it's pretty much almost up there with absenteeism in that you're not getting the most out of your employees. You as a person are not sort of performing at your best. So another thing about resilience is it makes people more adaptable to change and they're better able to handle challenges. So again, really important, like just with life in general. And resilient people are more problem-solving orientated. So moving on now, this is the grounded theory of resilience that Fletcher and Sarkar came up with that was on the previous quote. So if you think about, you've got stressors outside of yourselves coming in, and then you've got these psychological factors that tie into being resilient. So you've got motivation, focus, perceived social support, confidence and personality, and they all come in and then influence. So the challenge appraisals and metacognitions. Challenge appraisals is that kind of, you've got either challenge or you see something as a threat. So challenge is much more adaptive, and then seeing something as a threat is like less adaptive. So how we appraise the stressor is going to have a huge influence on how we react to it or how it affects us. And metacognitions are kind of thoughts about our thoughts. So thinking about thinking. And then like, all of these tie together. If you are more resilient, then you have a more facilitated response to the stressor. So moving on. So this is a little quote from Hamlet by Shakespeare. There's nothing either good or bad, but thinking makes it so. So this all ties into that metacognition. So obviously some events are very traumatic and no one's going to say that they are good, but how we react to it or how we think about it can have a huge influence on how much it impacts upon us. So you can have a much, like the way you think about it will have a huge impact on it. So challenge and threat appraisal. So as I just said, how we perceive situations has a direct effect upon our response to it. So first of all, I just want to put it out there to you. Is stress inherently a bad thing? And just take a moment to think about that. So stress can be adaptive or debilitating. So how we, like I said before, how we evaluate the stressor will have an effect upon how we react to it, how it impacts upon us. So stress can have a facilitative effect. So stress, if you think about it, stress goes into our fight or flight system. But the whole point of that system is to get us ready for action. So if you want to do something, being a little bit stressed can really help you with that motivation. So when we are stressed, you've got adrenaline, which is epinephrine, which is biochemically from dopamine. And that is a really powerful motivator. We also release anabolic hormones in the stress state, which can be really good for growth, not only muscle growth, but also for growth of new neurons, which means helps with our learning. So it, again, can be really a good thing in certain situations. Also in the short-term stress, this is related to short-term rather than chronic long-term stress, but short-term, it can raise hormones. So it raises testosterone for men and estrogen for women. And again, it can have that kind of motivating growth protective factors. So it can be a good thing. So the effect of stress upon us can be directly related to how we respond to it, and it can impact upon our physiology. So if we see stress as more of a challenge rather than a threat, our body and brain responds more adaptively. So first, how can we change this? Well, the good news is we can change our mindset towards stress. It takes a bit of work, but when you can do it, you can think about it and try and connect with the positive aspects of the stress, and then also thinking about why are you stressed about this situation. There is a whole exercise I can take you through, but it's beyond the scope of today's presentation. But there is like a whole sequence you can do to kind of change that mindset around stress. So I won't do this exercise right now, but if anyone's interested, I can do it with you. So coming back to that theory of resilience, first of all, we've got focus. So Rogers did a study with nurses and found that mindfulness meditation increased their resilience, protected them more from stress. So if you think about mindfulness meditation, it's all about quieting down the mind, relates to that appraisal, metacognition, to quieting down those thoughts and stopping us from panicking, to quieting down the mind and improving your focus. So breathing is another great way to help with focus, and also your vagus nerve is the backbone to your nervous system. And why, like deep breaths, particularly breathing in for a count of 4, holding for a count of 7, and exhaling for a count of 8, can really calm us down, take you out of your sympathetic nervous system and into your parasympathetic system, which is your relaxed state. So even though stress in the short term is a good thing and it can help to motivate you, if it's long term, we don't want to be staying in that state, in that nervous system. So we want to come back to that parasympathetic system, and it can be done with the breath, which is great. So limiting distractions also helps with focus. So I don't know about you, but can be terrible for having the phone on the side, and then every time you hear it go, you sort of check it, stop what you're doing, and that's really bad for your focus. And also it's been found that even if you have your phone on silent, having it on the side, there's like a phantom ring tone or something like that. So basically, you think your phone's gone off even though it hasn't. So out of sight, out of mind is really important. Put your phone in the drawer and don't check it apart from allocated times that you've set for yourself. Again, increasing focus, which in turn will increase resilience. Single tasking is also really important. We're not really capable of multitasking. We task switch. So if you want to really get into some focus, then you should limit your distractions, do one thing, and then you help with that focus. And then progressive muscle relaxation is a technique basically where you progressively relax your muscles. And it was basically based on the principle that an anxious mind can't live in a relaxed body. So whether or not that is true is yet to, well, who knows, up to you to decide. But it is a really great technique you can use if you're kind of wanting to bring yourself back to your body, improve your focus, and then hopefully in turn increase your resilience. So moving on to motivation. So motivation is important for resilience. Self-determination theory is a theory of motivation, and it basically says that we're motivated by 3 psychological needs. Competence is our ability to do something. You want something that's going to be a challenge because that keeps us motivated. If something's too easy, then you can lead to lack of motivation, or amotivation as it's called. So you want something that's challenging, stretching you, but not something that's too difficult, that's going to again lead to be demotivating because it's too hard. So as an employer or a team leader or anyone really, you want to make sure that the people in your company are given tasks that are within their capabilities. If it is a bit beyond them, you want to make sure they have the support so that they are capable of achieving it. And then autonomy. Autonomy is about having control. So I think one of the really challenging things about the last 2 years is that we have been out of control. Like, things have been happening to us, things that we've taken for granted have been taken away. And this is why in those kind of situations, it's really important to focus on what you can control and try and let go of what you can't control, which is why routines and things like that are super important. But that's, again, a conversation for another time. But with regards to resilience, autonomy, and the workplace, autonomy is things like we're allowing your employees to have as much control as you can give them reasonably. So, like, allowing them to do work in their own style if that's relevant for that role, but also things like, if they can, working in the hours that suit them, doing the work when it suits them, so they feel like they have some control. Companies that have adopted this found that the employees were actually more productive, and they also reported greater job satisfaction. So it's not always best to kind of dictate to people. Giving them that control can be really important and really good for developing resilience and relatedness. So this is kind of social support, which is on another slide. So again, I'll leave it for later. And then finally, goal setting. It's really hard to stay motivated if you're not working towards anything. So again, it depends on like the role that someone is doing, but if you can, having those appraisals and setting goals is really important for building resilience. And also, you want to, on an individual level, having sort of daily goals, weekly goals, so you can constantly track your progress is really important for building your resilience. And then moving on to confidence. Confidence, again, really important for resilience. Being prepared, very important for confidence. If you're doing a presentation, you've got a big meeting, being as prepared as you can will mean that you'll feel as confident as you can, and then you'll be less likely to become stressed. And then feedback. Receiving feedback or giving feedback is really important, so you know that you're on the right track. Getting that, if it's positive feedback, it'll give you confidence to continue. And with regards to feedback, it doesn't necessarily need to be just for things that have gone right. It could be well done for working hard, or like well done for learning from this mistake, rather than it always having to be like just when someone's done really well. So visualization and self-talk are they're quite a bit in depth for this today, but they are really powerful tools to help you with that, the metacognition. So challenge state, it's all about our thoughts. And so you can use self-talk and visualization to boost confidence, but also to help to challenge your thoughts if they're going down sort of the negative route. And like I said before, monitoring progress, having something to work against so you can see that you are getting somewhere or you are doing better, helps with confidence. And yeah, so confidence is built on accomplishment. So having something to sort of like go like, oh, I've done that, gives you that confidence boost. And so you can, like, again, building your resilience. And then finally, power poses. I love the power pose. So research has found that if you are needing a little bit of a confidence boost, maybe, again, it's before like it's a short-term thing, but if you stand in the super person pose, like this little person here, like, so you want your feet about shoulder distance apart, hands on your hips, shoulders back, and then sort of standing up nice and tall, chin slightly lifted. And holding that for like 2 minutes, 3 minutes before some big event can really help to boost your confidence. So I would like you all to try that at some point. It does work, I promise you. And then perceived social support. So social support is really important for resilience. And first of all, again, I just want you to take a moment and think about what social support is available to your employees or colleagues or whatever the situation you're in. What in your workplace, what of support is available to people? It can come from any source, but like, what is there for them if they need it? And then I want you to think about, how is this conveyed to your staff? Are they aware of that support? Because there's no point having support available if people don't know about it. The whole point of it is that you feel supported, and therefore you get that builds into your resilience because you know that there's something there for you. So just think about for a moment, if you don't think it's that clear, what could you do to make it more obvious to your staff? And so it's worth pointing out that social support can also come from sort of their friends, family, colleagues. So the fact that, yeah, colleagues are really important, which is why even though team building, it might have sort of maybe not negative connotations, but you know, maybe people think like, oh, team building exercises, but actually team building is really important. And again, like, you know, in the last 2 years, because we haven't had any sort of interactions that aren't Zoom meetings, it is important now to like try and get it out there, try and like get people together, not in a non-work environment. So it could be doing an exercise class together, or like, you know, even just going to a social event, just so people like kind of feel that camaraderie. Is really important within the workspace to develop that. So when people are feeling like they're sort of struggling, they know that they are safe and they've got someone that they can turn to. And finally, we're going to go on to positive personality. So openness to new experiences. This is what's described as a positive within the positive personality description. Conscientiousness, innovative, extroverted, emotionally stable, proactive, and optimistic. So being personality traits, you might think that that means that they are fixed. But actually, optimism in particular can be cultivated, which will in turn build someone's resilience. So optimism. And so this is based on the ABC model, which was by Ellis, which is to do with, which is based on cognitive behavioral therapy. So cognitive behavioral therapy, very much looking at your cognitions of what we think. So again, tying into that thing earlier about sort of metacognitions, challenge appraisal. So first of all, so it's ABC. A is the activating event, so that external event where you think the stress comes from. B is your beliefs, which is actually what can impact our reactions. And C is the consequences. So yes, so think like your actions. So basically you're identifying where your thoughts and beliefs are, and then questioning it to try and have a different response if it tends to be on the sort of negative side. So it's things like, what are your thoughts what are the thoughts that come up when a certain external thing happens, and how can you question it and change those thoughts? So the disputing is like disputing the negative thoughts as they happen. So is this true? And then trying to see where you might be making errors in your beliefs and your thoughts. And the decatastrophizing, I can't speak, decatastrophizing is kind of, yeah, exactly that. So, you know, how likely are, like, if you have catastrophized, so how likely is that really to happen? What's more likely to happen? So it's this kind of like this cognitive behavioral type training to help change the way that we eventually change how you think or how you react on that kind of subconscious level. And this is something that you can train and something you can learn to do. So basically this brings me on to my 1 hour resilience workshop that I've developed. I'm very, very proud of this. It's taken quite a lot of time, but I think it's something that can really help a lot of people. So basically it's a 1 hour workshop, which will be delivered either in person or via Zoom. And this will cover, well, first of all, we'll start with a questionnaire, so we can really sort of see where everyone's at the beginning, making it like quantifiable. You can see the improvements afterwards. And we'll take you through the benefits of resilience, so when people have a bit more buy-in, if they know why that they're doing something. And then in the 1 hour face-to-face or Zoom workshop, we will be doing like changing the appraisals of stress, developing optimism, so going through that ABC framework to give people the tools to start challenging their beliefs, going through self-talk and imagery, which are really powerful tools. All these things are kind of need like to one-to-one or, you know, group live interactive process, and also how to goal set so people can keep doing that in the future to keep themselves motivated. And then in support of the 1 hour live workshop, there will be additional video content released on a weekly basis, so they've got time to put it into practice and cultivate the resilience as they go. So there's things like improving sleep, because sleep is so important. Life is much harder when you're sleep deprived, so it's just tools and techniques of how to improve your sleep, hopefully just to make you more resilient in general. Then it's also meditation, mindfulness, and like I said before, that's really important for helping resilience, focusing the mind, and also breathing exercises for the same kind of reasons, and building confidence as well, various techniques that you can employ for doing that, and then also how to increase your motivation. So all of this is like on a weekly basis with sort of things to kind of keep people accountable and keep them working at it so they can boost their confidence, or boost their resilience, I should say, and then eventually hopefully feel more resilient and then reduce their experiences of stress and generally just make life that little bit easier. So thank you for joining me for that presentation. I hope you found it useful and you got some things you can take away and maybe put into practice just from that. But if you are interested in learning more about my workshop, then you can contact me either via email, is info@pausetoperform.com, or you can look me up on LinkedIn or visit my website, which is www.pausetoperform with the number 2.co, and I will link all of these whereas you can find me down below, and hopefully I'll see some of you on that workshop.